scores yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Support. Give it to one of the guys.
How do you? Did you guys send the link to the? Morty set that up, so everyone can call in. That's what this is.
Oh, it is? They can see it?
Yeah.
Made the decision. I didn't see it yet.
בין הרשעים כי גמוש אשר תצא נורua אוקיי ליגור שם במשפט כבויים עדת צדיקים כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים בדרך רשעים טובים מזמור דוד אדוני יגור עליך ישכון דעת קודשך ונהוילת תומן ופועל צדק Remes Muvavoy. The Rodal, the Shani, the also the Rod, the Hercule not so out the Goy. Lives a vein of the most that you are the Noy Habaid, you swallow out Lord, your need. Cast by the Nosan, the Neshek, the Shaken and Moki Loyal. You say, yeah, the Lord, Lord.
and small, Morda Asra, Kalpa, Letzalek.
And it seems appropriate and fitting that we should give her this kavod in this space medrash, where we shared with her so many of those meaningful life events, ufrufs, risim, sheva brachos, all those simchas that we shared as a family together. So how appropriate it is now, as it comes time for us to say goodbye to her, that we do it in this place where we shared so much. The Torah tells us, "Vayikol nefesh yotzei yerech Yaakov shivim nofesh v'Yosef hoya b'Mitzrayim." That there were 70 who were those who came or were with Yaakov when he came to Mitzrayim. The Medrash tells us that Yocheved, the mother of Moshe and Aaron and Miriam, was born Bein HaChoimos. She was born between those walls. She was that bridge that connected those who grew up in Eretz Yisrael and those generations to be that would be born in Mitzrayim, in the Golas. Jean, as she was affectionately known by I think everyone, she was one of those people who were that bridge, that connection between the world that was and is. Though she was born here in Chicago at Mount Sinai Hospital, but she inculcated within herself those values that her parents brought her from the other side of the pond. She was that bridge that brought over those values. But what are those values that she brought over? And we are told, "Vayomer melech Chaim lemayaldo yisrael asher shem ha'achas shifro ve'shem hashniya pua," that the Melech Mitzrayim told the Miyaldois, "Vatira ha'miyaldois es holokim," the Miyaldois did not listen, did not follow the Gezeros of the Melech Mitzrayim. Vatirenu ha'miyaldois es holokim. They had a fear of the Rebbeinu Shloim. They had a yiras haroimamus. They had an understanding of the greatness and the glory and the majesty of the Rebbeinu Shloim, in a sense of what it means to be a Yid, a Frumi Yid, that who is Mekayim Torah Mitzvos. And it wasn't something that was easy. She grew up at a time where many went away and gave up in order to succeed in many ways. And it was not looked at as being strange, but in many ways as acceptable. It was going against what most would do, to remain frum. But it's not only herself. She was able to go ahead and give over those values, those Torah-tic values, that feeling and understanding of Yiras Hashem, to her children, Pesach, I don't know the name, Mitch, Lisa, and Karen, and in turn, give them that Ahavas Hashem, that they were able to give it over to doyos, to children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. But it's not only Hu yiras Hashem. Chazal tell us that who were the Miyaldois, who was Shivra and Pur. There was Yocheved and Miriam. And Rashi brings down and says, why were they called Shivra and Pur? Because not only were they midwives, not only were they ones who made sure that the child was born, but they made sure to take care of the child's needs, that the child should grow, that the child should survive and should thrive. They made sure that they had a healthy environment and they were calm and nurtured. Bubby Jean was one who was concerned and cared about the entire family. She looked for what was necessary and what was needed, and she was the one who was there to fill that space, that place. She had in her that selflessness, that koyach of giving. And whether it meant that she left town for 12 years to take care of her parents, not only because they needed her physically, but emotionally and spiritually, to give them the comfort and knowing she is there, and if she is there, then everything will be well. She was that reassuring presence. And it wasn't only for her parents. We might think that was involved in there the aspect of kibbud aim, the kibbud av, but it was to her children and grandchildren as well, as she took the time to teach them all how to drive. She was always looking for what is needed and what can she fill and where can she be of help and assistance. And it wasn't with a feeling that it's being placed upon her, but she did it mit dem ganzen Herzen, with a full heart, with a want and a desire that this is my responsibility, this is my obligation, and this is what I want to do, my vocation, my love. And if anyone would have missed it before because they weren't involved and didn't see it, all they had to do was watch how she related, interacted, and took care of Naphtali. It is in these merits and these zechusim that she was zoiche liyasu lehem batim, that she was able to create homes, batim, homes of Torah, homes of Yer Shemayim, homes of Stoko, homes that are Pesuach L'Hakol, homes that are concerned not only with themselves, but with the world and the Kehillah at large. This was the lesson of Bubby Jean. This is a lesson that we must take with us. This is not something that we grow up with in America. In an America where each person is concerned for sich allein, for me. What's in it for me? These were values of Yiddish values. What can I do for Yemen? How can I help the other person? What are they missing? What are they lacking? And not because I expect something in return, but it's just, this is what I have to do. Because I'm a Yid, and this is what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from me. This is how I honor the Rebbeinu Shalom. Also the Batman. And we see that in the Peiros and in the Batim that she has built. May she continue to be a Melitza Yosef for the whole Mishpacha. And may she continue to see the nachas of these blessings growing larger and spreading more. Ki nafshe tzorah v'tzorah chayim.
My father, Rabbi Yaakov Zizel Glutter.
It is with a heavy heart and tremendous sorrow that we gather this morning to be masted, to eulogize my dear mother-in-law, Shana Bar Shalom, who lived in our home for almost 30 years. She was nifteres last night at approximately 8:50 p.m. My mother-in-law was born in Chicago in 1924 after her parents made a grueling trip by boat coming from Pinsk. Bubby Jean was one of 4 siblings: Shirley, herself, Beverly, and Alti. They weren't a typical immigrant Jewish family, since their father, Reb Shalom, lo shina es malbusham, lo shina es shemam. He never changed the way he dressed. From the time he was in Europe, he never shaved his beard. He never changed his name. His name wasn't Sam. His name was Shalom in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s. He was a true stolen chassid, planted in the midst of Chicago in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s. It was truly a miracle that with all of the changes going on in religious life in America, and especially in Chicago, Shalom and Chana Fagel Sklar kept their children al Taras HaKodesh, building a family today with hundreds of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, with religious upbringing and Torah values. Even though I was born on the west side of Chicago, I was raised mostly in Albany Park, where my best friends were Pesach Chase and Arola Chase, my brother-in-laws. These were my wife's 2 brothers. I remember my mother-in-law when I used to go over the house when I was 11 years old, being very kind and friendly. She was always helping her mother, cooking. In those days, they were scraping the scales off the fish right in the sink. I mean, everything was basic. And she was devoted to her father and his every needs. It was amazing to see how many of our children yesterday, were receiving texts and emails of condolences from their friends about the loss of Bubby Jean. Sie hat gewen a Weltbobbe. She was everybody's Bobbe, Bubby Jean. It was Bubby's pleasure to babysit, to do carpool, go shopping, and the list goes on. Bubby did so much for people. People relied on her. She herself became a life source to so many people. She became an integral person to everybody, and they all felt close. Bubby was part of a group of women for many years called the Girls in Chicago. They were Bertel Morgenstern, Pearl Newman, Gerta Abramczyk, Hilda Eisenstein, Goldie Hirschfeld, Ruth Lifshitz, Ula Mordechai, Sarah Carno, and Miriam Garden. Bubby was oftentimes lovingly referred to as Shanky by them. Bubby was raised during the Depression, and some of those traits ebbed and flowed within our home. Bubby would at times buy day-old bread.
at a discount from the bakery. And she said to me, she was trying to help me get rich. And my favorite was when she would go shopping at Carson's and show me a dress that she bought for very little because she got a 20% discount for senior citizens, 20% she shopped on Wednesday sale, and 20% off with a Carson's coupon. So by the time it was done, she almost got the dress for free, and that made her happy. When Bubby and Zadie Sklar were in their 70s, they decided they wanted to move to Lakewood, New Jersey. Zadie wanted to learn full-time in Lakewood. The only catch was they wanted Bubby Jean to move with them. And nothing more from my mother-in-law than Naseh v'Nishma. Such kibbud avim, no one, yes, no one, was Moser Nefesh at such a high level giving, Lev v'Nefesh, heart and soul, leaving everything she knew and behind, her family, her job, the girls, and just the tzedakah that she did, with being ad book chairman every year for Brisk Yeshiva, where she not only procured the ads, but she went a step further and made telephone calls to collect the money as well. She had a golden reputation. Bubby, what you have shown to your family reflects a royal stature. A little person would maybe have run away. A simple person would just ignore their obligations. Yet you stood as a pillar of strength, a lesson to all of us for all time. Rooted inside of you was the ability to adapt to different situations with Gevurah. This personality also exemplified itself in her relationship with our dear son, Naftali. You listening, Naftali? Okay. She was totally übergegeben to Naftali. And not too long ago, she recently told my wife, I'm going to have to live forever and take care of Naftali. This relationship was from the birth of Naftali. He should live and be well. This personality of Bubby's translated to her own children when they were growing up, to the extent that no matter what happened, Ma could fix it. Ma was their strength. Ma was their security. Ma was their powerhouse. Also, whatever Bubby did, she did fully and saw everything to its completion. She was totally selfless and lived mamish for everybody else. I must give credit to my wife, Lisa, who carried the brunt of care over these last years, alongside of her devoted and dedicated siblings, Karen, who flew regularly back and forth from New York to visit and help, as well as Surka and Mitchell, who also were in the house constantly. Also, our dear Aunt Alti, my mother-in-law's sister, so it's a Gesundsein. She came with her daughter Chani, and they came regularly from Lakewood and Baltimore to visit. We all worked together as a family unit to assist my mother-in-law in her later years. I would say that nothing touched me more as watching my wife davening with my mother-in-law every morning. Lisa told me when she reached the tefillah of Elu Devorim Sha'adam Ochel Peroseo B'Olam Hazeh V'Akeren Kayemes Lo L'Olam Haba V'Elohein Kibud Avayim. The very first reward received in this world and the world to come is for honoring your mother, your father, and your mother. Lisa told me that she would stop every morning on this pasuk and say to her mother, You certainly have earned these rewards. Ma, you wrote the book for this pasuk. I know my mother-in-law would want to thank Dr. Lynn Belsky, who treated her for years no differently than this was her own mother, day and night. Thank you, our entire family. Also, Nina, Michelle, Ornella, Raina, Betty. Also, thank you to Encompass Home Health Services and their therapists, as well as our good family friend, David Simpkins, who was our rock, especially this last week, as was Todd Stern and his staff from C. Thanks to Atzola, who were in our home numerous times over the last couple of years. And of course, Achon, I want to thank the Rabbi Small family and the Rebbitzin for all the many years we attended the shul with my mother-in-law and my parents and my uncles and my family. And as he said, all the bar mitzvahs and all the simchas and the ufrufs were in this very shul. Finally, it is said, the best mother of a child could ask for is one who will truly be loved and missed forever. So exactly, as a family, what is our responsibility? Our responsibility, each and every one of us, that golden shalsheles, that chain that was started hundreds of years ago, from the Sklar side of the family, from the Morgenstern side of the family, the Kotzker, direct descendant to the Kotzker Rebbe, to keep that chain alive with Frumkeit and Torah values that she struggled to keep in some very rough times. Ma, I want to ask you your mechila, your forgiveness. If I or Lisa or any of you children did anything to hurt you or to impinge on your kavod, to impinge on your honor, we tried our best. Leich l'shalom. My dear mother, we all love you. We miss you already. Truly, your zechusim will lead you into Gan Eden. You should be a good better, a good advocate for all of us, your entire family in Klal Yisrael. Ma, just one last thing. You always, whenever you left the house, you would never say goodbye. It was just one of your things. So when leaving, so let's just say, we'll see you later. Tehei nishmasu tzurur b'tzvah chaim.
My uncle, Reb Abba Meir Morgenstern.
First, I'd like to thank Rabbi Small and his family. As he mentioned, as he mentioned, my bar mitzvah was on Lawrence Avenue by his grandfather, Rabbi Isaac Small. My Ufruf was right here, academia here at the initial. So our family has had a long connection. I still remember listening to Rabbi Small speeches from here. Sitting right where my brother faced out the same. In 1983, when my mother's father, Rabbi Shalom Sklar, was nifter, my uncle, Rabbi Yosef Meza, was maspid my grandfather in Lakewood. His wife, Rebbitzin Shirley Meza, my mother's oldest sister, should have a refuah shlema and a richas yamim. He said at the time, and I was much younger, that even when someone passes in an older age, you expect everything to remain the same. You expect to wake up in the morning and have your parents there. We no longer have our mother. My brother Pesach always said, constantly to me when he called me, that our Bubby and Zadie, they're elderly in years, were always our the Karasabayas. So it was with our mother. Even when she could no longer be active, when she sat, she was in the Glenner family room, in the chair, we would come over, I said, Ma, we need you, you're the Karasabayas, you're very important to us. My mother was born on April 27th, 1924, to my grandparents, Reb Shalom and Hannah Tegel Sklar. She was an American child born to immigrant parents into a hard world. During World War II, she was a Rosie the Riveter. At that time, in the 40s, she made decisions that would shape the rest of her life. When my mother was not able to get out in the last few years, and had to sit in the chair, my mother reflected on her life, and what people do, and I think this is common, she focused on decisions she made, and the bad decisions, things that maybe she could have done differently, maybe she should have done differently. My sister Karen was always there for her, and Karen told her, it's irrelevant now. Look at your family, look at your great family. Yeah, you probably did make wrong decisions, but that's not important right now. Maybe Karen didn't say it that way, but decisions have outcomes. Look at the outcomes. Look at your great family. You have Pesach, you have Arla, you have Lisa, you have me. You have a great family. You have everyone. Look at what Arla and Esther Malka did for Bubby and Zadie. They have this magnificent family in Lakewood. When Karen made her last bar mitzvah about 12 years ago, really the first time that all the chasers from Lakewood came in, and it was the first time that there was a big gathering of the family. I looked around and I noticed, wow, look at my brother Arla's family. My brother, unfortunately, was nifter before then. And I looked around, wow, this is a great family. And Karen told me, wow, look what you have. Look what that all produced, something greatness. When my son Ellie hit a bar mitzvah, so my brother Arla called me and said, I'm coming in. I said, Arla, you're busy, you work, you don't have to come in. And he said, no, Mitch, I want to come in. He came in, and we had, in life sometimes 2 hours is a year, 2 years, sometimes even a lifetime. It really was very good. I really appreciated it. My brother's family came in this morning. There's going to be a hesped at, I believe it's at JFK at 9 p.m. And they could have just gone there, but they came in. The beautiful family, and Esther Malka came in, my sister-in-law, Arla's wife, and their family. I still remember on April 1st, I think it was April 1st, or right around then, 1968 actually, when my mother received a call from Arla, wishing my mother Mazel Tov. Arla at that time had his first child, born I believe on his birthday. That was Leah Rezo. And I like to have memories where I was there. I remember, like it's right here, I remember just the simcha we had, great-grandchild. That was from 68. So I'd like to thank, the Chase family, Leah Rezo, Yankee, Chavi, Avram Shmuel, Dovi, Torah, and Nechama. Thank you for everyone who came in. Thank you for everything you've given my mother over the years. You gave her more than just great things. Thank you very much. Rabbi Abner Weiss, rabbi of the Westwood Village Synagogue in LA, said that the reason why Yaakov's son Yehuda merited kingship was due to his fierce loyalty to his brother and extended family. My mother had our backs. She was there for us. When someone in the family needed something, whether it's money, a favor, a ride, my mother was there. She had no trouble confronting bullies. She would get out of her car and confront bullies. She just was fearless. You know, my Zaidi Seder was always special. I mean, he brought me and hung him from his father. And as kids, the highlight of the Seder was towards the end of the Seder, by Takis Ben Luka. You all know as well, and we waited for my Zaidi would scream out Takis. And my mother lived my Zaidi's Takifas. In life, you know, we try to do as many mitzvahs as possible. We try to pick up mitzvahs just laying on the ground. And there was an incident that happened that if I didn't force it in my memory, I probably would have forgotten it. I forced my memory to remember when my mother signed something, so I could have those emotions in me. So I could always testify to something maybe seemingly small. I thought it was great. It helped me out, it helped someone out. And I just want to say over what happened. As you know, for many years, Baruch Hashem, I still am, I'm a lender at MB Financial. And one of the schools my kids went to needed a loan. It was a working capital loan they needed for operations. It was, I don't recall the amount, maybe it was $500,000. The bank required 10 signatures. I had 9. Couldn't get 10. And you know, I'm Jewish, things always bother me. And I had to get the 10th signature. Okay, who could I get? And whether I should have, my responsibility not. It was irrelevant. I see my mother driving by. I said, wow. I stop her. Maybe she stopped to roll down the window and say hello. I said, Ma, sign this document. You're guaranteeing Beis Yaakov's loan. I shouldn't have said this loan. This is the early 90s. We're talking one time a day. And you know, I said, you know, it'll help me out, it'll help the school out. And I said, but you know, you're guaranteeing a loan. And it's serious. You know, I told her, you know, if the loan goes into default, I'm coming after you, Ma. And she signed it. And I forced the story into my memory so that I'll always remember what it meant to me, I felt to the school, and something that no one knew about, something small. Just pick it up. Just drive. Happened to be driving. If she didn't happen to be driving by, it wouldn't have happened. And that's who my mother was. Morning Shabbos, I have more down there, okay? On Pei Ches Hamanal, says on the Pasuk Mishpatim, it's Amar Rabbi Lazar, that when Klal Yisrael said Nasa v'Nishma, they said, you can do more. I can't quote things unless I read it. But it's a famous Gemara. Amar Rabbi Lazar, B'shah shehikimu Yisrael Nasa v'Nishma, Yotza Bas Kol v'Amra, the home. The Bas Kol came out and said, Miki lo livni, who revealed to my children Raza, the secret Shemape Sharis Mishtamshin Bo that they use. See, Baruch Hashem, okay, Baruch Hashem Pamalfa, Baruch Hashem the Dvar, which wants to call the Dvar Beresha. Beresha will say, first they do, go ahead, small. You know, I told Karen, my sister Karen, I may even call her up, I said, when I learned the Gemara, I said, Karen, I don't understand what this Gemara is talking about. This is our mother. My mother was a Nasiv Nishma. I mean, Nasiv Nishma, she learned it from her parents and her grandparents. In life, and parents do this, not just my mother, but first you do, and then, okay, you can listen or not listen. But I still don't understand the Gemara to this day. I don't understand the Raws, and I guess I maybe have to look in Meforshim, but I don't understand. That was my mother. I just want to reiterate this. I know it's been said twice, and Reverend Small said approximately 1980 when my uncle called my mother saying, you know, your parents are doing well, they have to go to a nursing home, and you know, the question my mother should go or not go. And you know, I talked through the issues because even if something the parents you think the answer is yes, but it's best to talk out the issues. And she went, and it was not, yeah, she helped them physically, shopping and everything, but it was just her presence. Her presence said everything's going to be fine. And it gave my grandparents comfort, and they're able to live out the last few years of their lives and knowing that my mother's always there. My mother's comfort was not important. It was what had to be done. My Zaidi, Rav Shlomo Sklar, had to go through a painful operation in 1966 at Edgewater Hospital. At that time, my mother was working, she had to go to work. So what she would do is, my Zaidi had the operation, and my mother visited him at night, woke up in the morning, didn't go home, went to work, went downtown to work, went back to the hospital right after work, stayed all night with my Zaidi, dozed off through the night in an uncomfortable chair, went back to work in the morning. And right after, I went in the morning. And she repeated this for, I don't know if it was for a week, she repeated this cycle until my grandfather left the hospital, maybe a week. And I asked my mother why she had to do this. Why not at night? You know, Zadie's sleeping. Why not go home? And she answered, she said, because if my father, if your Zadie needs some ice chips in the middle of the night, we have to hit a call button and call a nurse. I don't want that to happen. I want to have it immediately, not to wait a second longer, so that her father should not have to suffer just one ice chip. And my mother did this, stayed with my Zadie for about a week. This is 1966, well before hospitals let people just stay in the room as you have today in hospitals. My mother didn't care, and the nurses weren't happy with her, but she didn't care. My Zadie's comfort, whatever my Zadie needed, was paramount. You know, this just played itself out, and I just have to mention this. Motzei Shabbos, you know, my mother was not doing well, and my mother was clearly in distress, clearly. Cindy came into the room, and Cindy has a sixth sense. And my mother couldn't eat, couldn't swallow, and she was suffering, and so Cindy says, you know, Ma, I'll get you some ice chips. Cindy went downstairs and fed her 3 ice chips, 3 ice chips. And the scene played back. The scene played back for what my mother did for my Zadie back in 1966, and Cindy was able to do for my mother. And I could see my mother's face, some of the tension was going on my mother's face. Just 3 ice chips. My first job was in 1977. I think everyone knows the story, so I won't repeat it. And I worked for the government. But of course, I had to get up and I had to drive about 45 minutes an hour every day. So it snowed a lot in the winter in Chicago back then. And so, you know, snow, my car would be full of snow. Of course, I always try to grab as much sleep. My mother would get up before me, go downstairs and clean my car for me. And I would yell out, Ma, I don't appreciate it. You know, it's a Shiloh, my keep it up and hang. You're taking with my keep it up and hang. But that was my mother. She didn't ask any questions, she did it. She did it. As years went by, my mother graduated from just being a mother to grandmother and great-grandmother. It's a very large family. But she was a working Bubby. She was not a Bubby who had the comfort of sitting at home. She worked. She always had responsibility on her shoulders, like as Cindy mentioned. She went to sleep at night knowing that the next day, if she thought about it, she had carpools to take, shopping, run errands, take Naphtali to wherever he had to go, and a myriad of other tasks. And it's good. I mean, she did that. And she always worried about her family and her kids, and what she had to do next, and what she had to do next. She was the grease that kept the wheels of life turning. On my mother's 94th birthday, this past April, it was almost an impromptu birthday party for her. All the kids came over, and we just told Bubby Jean stories for about 2 hours. It just reflected her kindness to her family and what Bubby did for the family, just shone like a diamond. And I said, Ma, how many carpools to Tel Shiva did you do? First were, I think, Yonatan, Yoshala, my son Eli, who are just constant carpools going south of Forster Avenue, and other carpools. She was my partner in mitzvahs. Whenever I needed something, whenever something had to be done, if I was aware of it in the family, I'd say, Ma, we got to do this. And invariably, we'd talk about it, and she would do it with me. My brother Pesach, who will speak after me, he had a bond with my mother that no one else had. And I talk about, always speak about it. In early October, my mother was taken on Shabbos to Swedish Common Hospital. And we thought that was it. We actually called Rebbe first. We thought that was it. Sunday morning, I come to the hospital, and lo and behold, and I always felt that it was my brother's essence helped bring my mother back. And this has also been translated down to his son, Mayor. You know, everyone has to use different people for different things. And I think Mayor was an outlet for my mother to confide in him things that she cannot. She needed Mayor, and Mayor was very important to her and the family. Cindy didn't mention Alti and Connie, and they're always coming in. But really, it's Alti's entire family. I think they're the only ones in the family who call my mother by her Yiddish name, Shanky. Like it's Shanky, you know, for me it's a little odd, why would you call someone Shanky? But okay, that's your aunt. But they're the only ones Shanky, and they love my mother coming to the Simchas, and they hugged and kissed my mother. And my aunt Alti and her daughter Connie from Baltimore would come in, as Cindy mentioned, on a regular basis, and really a special family. She was treasured whenever she went to any of the Simchas. You know, there was everything that Lisa did for my mother and Cindy was just for the family was great. They literally, you know, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe more than 3, when my mother her blood pressure just went through the roof, and I was there, and he thought that was it. She was mumbling and babbling, and really their efforts on the parent to watch over my mother. And I believe they kept her alive for over 3 years. And I really have to thank Cindy and Lisa and Karen for just everything they did. What Karen has done is, and Cindy mentioned it, is legendary. Her parnas, her job's on the line. She would come in once a week for about a year, and she almost lost, I don't know, both her jobs, but it really was a financial strain on her. And she was really willing to sacrifice her jobs for my mother. She was always there. I lived across the street from my mother, 100 yards away, a little more. She lived in New York, how many miles? About, by car, 800, 900 miles. Yet, she was there with my mother plenty of times, not just quality, many more times than I was with my mother. That speaks to how my sister felt and Karen's dedication and my love for her. I want to thank the entire community for everything they did. As Cindy said, everyone knew Bubby Jean. She was always there, and everything that she did for Naftali. I do have to tell one last story. My niece Tzivy made a bar mitzvah in Toronto for Avrami. And so we were there, and I always forget things. So my mother's upstairs, and it's Naftali, and Karen was upstairs, and I say, Ma, you know, I need some college days. Okay. So I don't know if I really meant it as a serious question. So my mother reaches in her purse and pulls out college days. But that was my mother. She was always doing things for her kids. And I'm convinced that if I needed a suit out of her purse or bag, a suit would have come out. Would have been convinced. But that was my mother. She lived for others. She did for others, and we could always count on her. And worried about her parents and Bubby and Zadie. I would like to thank the community for everything they have done, again, for my mother and my family. Mother, if we wronged you in any way, you know, we tried our best. Everyone loves you, and we tried our best, and we thank you for everything. We want to ask Nechila for anything that we did not do for you, we could have done. And may you be a Melas Yosher and Shemayim from the entire family.
My uncle Rabbi Pesach Chase.
I come in here and I look at the name, it says Gene Morgenstern. English Nomi. But the emphasis Gene Morgenstern. This is given my mama. My mama had a kesher with her parents
with my brother Arnold Shalom. It's Kumses on everything at one time, now with my mother. We talk about, they say, Bubby Jean. I want everybody to know, when we grew up, me and Arla, my other siblings, when we grew up, we had a Bubby and Zayd. My mother was my mother, Ma. She came later in life, she became Bubby Jean. Why did she become Bubby Jean? How did she become Bubby Jean? Because the kibbutz aviyim that she gave to her parents, she gave her life for her parents. Here you had, in America, when my Zadie came to America, my mother was an American girl. She went to public school. She didn't have the Beis Yaakovs that they had today. All she saw from her Yiddishkeit was from her mother and father. And she went to a lot of... To me, it comes to me from my heart, my Bubby, my Zadie, but she understood. She gave her life for her mother and father. Whether right or wrong, but we see, she is Bubby Jean because she gave the mitzvah of kibbutz aviyim. Everybody who spoke today brought a point, and every point that there was said, by Small you said when she grew up in America, it's emes la'mitoi. Everything. Nothing became, living in a house, an American girl living in a house that, with parents that came from Europe. My Bubby and Zadie, they didn't have anything. They came to America with nothing. My Zadie told me when he came to America to have a job was almost impossible. Because if you said that you did not want to work on Shabbos, you lost your job. You couldn't have a job. But how did it transfer over to the children? I mean, the children grew up in America. They had friends in school. They don't have this. My Zadie had this Masira from Europe, from his parents. But my mother was an American girl. Beredveg and my mama. My mama's given an Americana girl, but she had to learn from her mother and father. This is we don't have today. She had to learn the hard way. Somebody else we always blame things, certain things we blame because we have a different way of life. Because today, the Frumkeit is much easier. But in jener Zeiten is given sehr schwer. It wasn't that she's living in Europe, she was an American girl. Jean Morgenstern was given my mama. And she grew up in such an element here in America. And she had a mother and father. Today we find children who rebel against their parents. She was a typical American girl. The Medrash sagt, als a Meis versteht, was mir red wegen Ma, sollst du wissen, I understand what you went through. I understand what you went through. Here was a woman that grew up in such a matzav in America in the 30s, in the 40s. And about it, she had questions. Her girlfriends in school lived a different life. They didn't have, not all of them had such parents that came from Europe. And this, we have to understand, this is what she had to go through. That was her nisyonis. And everything she did, till the end of her life, till her parents were nifter, she gave her life for her parents. The kibbutz aviyim that she gave is legendary. It's this legacy, and I always said that today, I did not know her. All the children today, from all the children, they call her Bubby Jean. So to me, it's when I grew up, there was no Matthias of Bubby Jean. It was my Bubby. But she became the Bubby. You know why she became the Bubby? Because she gave over such kibbutz aviyim to her parents, and that she gave over to her children. The kinder, all the children, I have to say, everybody has a schus, what they my mother, but my son Meir was very close with her, and he was mechazik her, and she had a special bond with him. But it's not about us, it's about my mother. I want to thank my sister, Esther, my brother-in-law. She lived by them, and it's a Gevalda Koras Atov. Ma, you know that if I didn't develop, everything's Bashert in the Welt. Everything's Bashert. It was Bashert that I should live in Toronto, and you stayed in Chicago. You know, Ma, if I would have been with you in the same city, wollte ich getan es sag. For those darf ich fragen Mechila, but it's not my fault. The Zach is Bashert. We can't fragen Kinkashes. But the ones that helped you out, my sister Karen, my brother Avram Meir, I have a Gevaldi Akoras Atov. My wife, Esther soll sein gesund. She loves you also. Ma, I don't know if I'm doing justice to you because of but this is the least I could do because the kibbut aviyim that I saw when I grew up that you gave to your mother and father. And I remember when my brother Harlal of Shalom, when he was nifter, my mother came to the hospital in Toronto and she had given mein Kind. Das tut mir weh an der Yom Hazeh. So Ma, I do Mechila, but Ma, you should know that you were a kesher to what your parents, and they gave me the chizuk to continue the way we are. Is Milas, Amovis Lanetzach, Mazel Zayin Amel, it's Yosef for uns, for the Mishpocha, of our ganz.
Please rise for the Kamalai.
We'll be at Hard Maneuvers tomorrow evening at approximately 7:30. We'll be joining the family on the way to the airport. We'll be lighting up in the alley. Most of the family will be going to Israel. They'll be back Wednesday morning. They'll be getting shivered right away. The Glen residence, 2959 West Glen Lake. The shot for 7 morning will be at 7:30 and then at 4:05. We could just create an hour so the family could leave. And once they have left, we're still ready to go to the vehicles.
I'm gonna go to the car, go to the